So in his book, he tells a story of his grandmother and an experience he had with his grandmother. And his grandmother was a Toltec teacher. She traveled throughout Mexico and California primarily, and she was a healer. But she did not speak any English. So when she was in California and the western states that she traveled in, she had to have an interpreter, and it happened to be Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. And so what happened was is that as they traveled together and over the first few months, he found himself, as she was speaking, having trouble doing the translation. He would stumble. He would stutter at times. He would stop and think and lose kind of sight of where she was going, okay? And so his grandmother, who was a very cheerful person, would just laugh and say, "You'll catch on, you'll catch on." And finally, what happened was she asked him, she said, "Why do you think you stumble over my words as my translator?" And he kind of looked at her for a moment. He said, "Well, you talk too fast, number one. Number two," and I didn't talk to my grandmother this way, but anyway. And number two, some of the words don't make sense to me, and I can't translate them into English. And number three is that I don't understand exactly what you're talking about sometimes, so I have to figure it out as I go along. So that causes me to stumble. And I wish you would talk slower, and I wish you would do this and that and that. And he didn't realize it, but she knew that what he was doing was blaming her for his stumbling. You know, sometimes we blame others for our stumbling because it makes us feel comfortable. And what she said to him is, "Don Miguel, are you using knowledge, or is knowledge using you?" And he said, I don't quite understand what you mean." And she said, "Well, when you translate, you try to express my words through what you already know and believe. What you think is true. You don't hear me, you hear yourself. And imagine doing the same thing every single moment in your life, because this is a lifetime lesson," she said to him. Because what would happen, you see, is that you would be so busy translating life, so busy taking the accumulated knowledge that you have and working with it, analyzing it, that you couldn't enjoy life. He started to get it a little bit, but he said it took him a while. And so she said, "Do not let knowledge translate everything you experience." Eckhart Tolle said it in a different way. He said, "We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are." How true. And when we allow knowledge to translate everything we experience, we become storytellers. And some of us become great storytellers. Some of us can tell you about the drama in their life, and you get right there with them. And they tell you about the person who caused the drama, and you agree with them. And you don't like that person anymore either. You know, we have to be careful of that, right? Because we get attached not only to our stories, but to other people's stories. And the only way I can get attached to another person's story is if I think I've had a similar experience and I have the right to be attached. And so how do we go through this process of not being attached? What is it that we have learned from others that we can't seem to let go of? What has become our story? Who do we really think we are? And what we think we are in most cases is what we perceive we have experienced. And it's our interpretation of what we have experienced. And one of the things we know with perception is everybody has a different perception of what's happening because everybody has a different story. None of us have the same story of life. We have different perceptions of what's happened. And so when you tell me your story, I translate it into my words. And I let it be my story. And it helps me build my story. And as I do that, that perception really is an illusion. You see, all the stories and all the stuff that we carry that we're not willing to let go of gets in the way of our potential. Our perceptions get in the way of our potential. And as we allow that to happen, what happens is that we get bonded, if you would, with those stories. We get attached to those stories. And we become stuck in our beliefs. And we become rigid. And we think we know the truth. And we become stagnant, and we can become oppressive if we're not careful, because we think everybody ought to live our truth, live our story. And all of a sudden, my thoughts, you see, which create the story, become the narrators of my life. And I allow the ego to be in charge of my belief system. If we live like that in 2015, then the ego is going to have a great 2015. But thank goodness we can do something about that. And what we call this process of building stories is called domestication. It's when I implement a system of reward and punishment to train myself to live my stories as truth. This is known as domestication. My parents domesticated me. My teachers domesticated me. My friends domesticated me. My career domesticated me. Because what I did is I built up an idea of how I should be based on those perceptions, based on what I thought was the truth. And so when things didn't work, I became my judge and my jury. And I would always find myself guilty, because I would never think that I was smart enough, or I not feel like I was attractive enough, or I don't have enough because I'm lacking this or that to give me an opportunity to move forward. And I live in the world of if only. And we all know that that holds us back. So what we need to do is let go of our stories and our attachments, and to know that there is more than one way to perceive our past, and through change start to perceive our potential. There's more than one way to perceive our past. Remember that. Because your brother or sister, your mom or dad, your friend has a different perception, even though they were in the same place you were in at the same time. And so you choose what perception you're willing to accept, and what perception that you want to release and let go of. You start to say, I have the power to control my thoughts and no longer live a life of desperation and a life of domestication. So how do we set ourselves free from our illusions, from our attachments, from our perceptions? How do we live life authentically? That's just what it's all about. How do I live life so that I'm in the presence of life and not thinking about the past or the future? How can I be with people and see them for the truth that they are love, that they are an expression of God, that they are divine? And there are a number of things we have to do. And we use that law of mind action to do that. Remember in the Daily Word it said, as Scripture, for this I was born, and for this I came into the world. This is Jesus speaking. To testify to the truth. This is in John 18:37, towards the end of his ministry, when I think he had become totally Christed, when he understood what his ministry was really all about. I'm not sure he always understood that. But he knew it was about bringing truth to people. And that in the truth of finding out who they were and their potential, they would be, in essence, born again. Their lives would be transformed. They would see life differently. And they would understand that they could do what he did and even more, as he said. To see the truth. And we use that law of mind action to do that. We say that what I think is what I become. And that I have the power to control my thoughts and no longer live this life of desperation, as I said. Don Miguel Ruiz says in his book, Jr. says in his book, there are 4 ways in which we can release ourselves, free ourselves from our illusions, and they are illusions, from our attachments, and they are what we are attached to, and our perceptions. 1 You have to release your false ideals of perfection. I know, that's hard, isn't it? I mean, I know the way you should act. I know when you make a mistake. Because you don't come up and meet the standard from which I believe perfection is. And not only do I judge you, but before I do that, I judge myself. Because I cannot judge you without judging myself. See? So I am saying to myself, I'm not perfect. I'm saying to myself, as I said earlier, I'm not smart enough, not attractive enough, I don't have enough. And what we can learn to do is say, I am perfect as I am. Because the second step is to say to yourself, you are a work in progress, a never-ending masterpiece. I have a little piece of work at home that my aunt gave me. And it says, be patient, God is still working on me. You've seen that, right? It's kind of cool. Be patient, God is still. And that's what's happening. We are still working on ourselves. The I am within is allowing us to release and let go of these attachments if we so desire. But it takes work, and it takes awareness. When we're in a situation and respond to it by reacting, it's an opportunity to look at our attachment, what we're attached to. It's an opportunity to look at what might be an unhelpful perception. So we are, as Don Miguel Ruiz said, we are becoming this masterpiece. And the neat thing, you see, is that we are a canvas of life. And every great painter will every once in a while throw a canvas away or erase what's on the canvas and start all over again. You and I can erase what's on our canvas. You and I have that potential to change our thoughts, and when we change our thoughts, we change our life. You and I have that ability to focus on something different and not focus on what holds us back. You and I have that ability to become the potential of the Christ presence in our lives and in everybody's life. And so what happens is that I learn to accept myself as love. I learn to understand that the I am of my beingness is the Christ within me. And that's what I want to focus on. That's what I want to become. That's what I want to manifest. That's what I want to express to each and every person, to the world. But until I do that, you see, I can't see the perfection in them. I can't see the divinity in them. I hold them to a different standard. And people feel that, and they're uncomfortable with it. And they get angry over it. And they don't even know what they're angry about sometimes. So what we learn to do is let go of that stuff. See through our own stuff, love ourselves as we are, and then we are able automatically to love others as they are. Just knowing they are perfect where they are. They don't have to be in a certain level of enlightenment. They don't have to, know certain and understand certain rules or regulations. They don't have to have a creed. They don't have to have anything except a love for themselves, which is Spirit working within. Not a self-love, not a selfish love, but a love for themselves. You deserve to love yourselves. You really do. Because you are perfect as you are. And when I say that, what I'm saying is you are in that growth process. You are evolving. You are learning. And as you learn to behold the presence of Christ, the divinity exists in every person, what happens is you have to say, how do I get to that point, though? How do I do that? A few people have a revelation. A few people have a moment of transformation that to them is like a salvation moment in their lives, where they change. I'm not talking about believing in Jesus. I'm talking about the salvation that we bring when we bring to ourselves when we understand Jesus' message. The difference between the two. And that happens to a few people, but not many. Aha, I got it all. One fell swoop. Most of us have to do it step by step by step. Attachment by attachment by attachment. And we let go of it. And as we do, we begin to feel differently about life. Eckhart Tolle says the way you do this is learn to live in the presence, learn to understand and see others in the presence, is that you have to practice it. And the first way you practice it is you find something that will not be critical of you. When you say, I am perfect just the way they are, you don't need a mother, you don't need a friend, you don't need a co-worker saying, no, you're not. Whoever told you that? I'm worthy. No, you're not. You're not worthy. You need to be saved. Don't need that, right? That's not healthy. So how do we do it? Well, he has a simple solution. Eckhart Tolle, he says, go to a tree. Sit in front of a tree and say, I am perfect. I am releasing my tree doesn't answer you. I've never had a tree talk to me. Maybe make a little sound because of the wind. But I haven't had a tree say, oh no, Richard, you're wrong. You aren't intelligent because you flunked the test. You aren't intelligent because you had lousy grades. I haven't had a tree say to me, oh, you can't love people unconditionally. That's impossible. Now, if you're uncomfortable with a tree or a forest, then look at your dog, if you have a dog, or look at somebody's dogs and look in their eyes. You know, every dog that I've looked at who's been loved only knows how to love. Unconditionally, right? I mean, I can scold, when I had dogs, I could scold the dog, and the dog, after about 30 seconds, would go, I'm so happy. I said, I just scolded you. What's the matter with you? See, the dog getting critical. So I can sit with the dog and look in their eyes, and I can feel the love that comes from that dog unconditionally. Now, I'm not sure, no disrespect, I'm not sure you can do that with cats, but some of you may be able to, okay? Because cat, it's my turn. Cats, I don't know what a cat's thinking. They're brilliant, but I don't know what they're thinking, okay? But anyway, I'm kidding. But dogs, you do know, you feel where they are. That's why I have a partiality to dogs, as you can tell. And cats like me, I want you to know that. That's really surprising to me, but they do. So I guess they're uncritical too. Or, you know, you can look at your fish tank if you want to. Fish do not talk back to you. The point being is that you need to practice, you see? And then as you practice this, what you do is you then start to go to a Walmart, or you start to go to your grocery store, or you start to go to the movie theater, or you're on a flight, and what you do is you start to see the other person as you choose to see them, which is love. You see through their stuff. You don't know anything about them sometimes. And all of a sudden they become friendly. All of a sudden they start to smile. You treat people with respect, and they respond to that. And so that's where you practice. See, they won't be critical of you because they don't know what's going on. They're not talking to you. Now, you got to go to work. But practice before you go there, and then you start to bring that presence to work. But here's the neat thing. You don't have to go in and say, oh, guys, thank God today I'm here because I am bringing the presence of love to you. That is not the way you do it, okay? What you do is you show up with that presence of love. You behold that in other people. You hold it in your space. And what will happen is things will change for you and for some others. For some reason, they'll treat you a little differently because they feel where you are. They don't know what it is, but they feel where you are. And actually, they want to be there too because that's the innate spirit within. I want to be free. I want to be authentic. I want to live life authentically. When we let go of the judgment, the self-judgment, when we let go of the conditional love and step into unconditional love, we start to evolve. We start to grow. Life is no longer the condition for change. It is the starting point for change. Love is no longer the condition for change. It is a starting point for change. Then we experience and become that unconditional love. And we actually share that. And we feel good about it because we are good. And when we release an attachment, we release our ability to have more potential. And we can see that potential, feel that potential, and experience that potential. And when we do that, we live life authentically. In a few moments, we're going to have that opportunity to kind of start this year in a unique way. We're going to sing Listen, Listen, Listen. And Vicky, is that your name? Vicky, is going to lead us in that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through this white stone ceremony. And I hope you really hold that presence, hold your time in meditation. As you release any attachments and you experience the joy, the love, the peace, the brilliance, the artist that you are. So, Vicki, why don't you bring us into this white stone ceremony?